And we are back. So sorry for any issues we were experiencing before. We are hoping to avert those now.
No, welcome back. We are able to connect with Brieane out when we do a private video, and we are just struggling on the live. I'm not sure. There she is. I see. Oh,
Yay!
goodness, she is here. We did
Yay!
it.
Finally! Oh man, too funny.
All right. Well, I am glad that you are here on the live, and hopefully, some of those people who were here before are able to join us. But
Yes, and
before
thank you for your patience, guys.
uh, So I will go ahead and introduce myself, and I'll have you introduce yourself. Since I talked a bit earlier, I'll just, people had heard from me. I am Christina Wallace. I am the author of the Lightkeeper series. Books 1 and 2 are currently available, and then my third book launches on Tuesday. So I'm very excited about that. I currently have another book published that's more of a YA romantasy book, so I'm working on expanding my writing that way. And I also have a prequel series that I'm starting that's Lightkeeper related. So I have a lot of projects going on that I'm all very excited about. But I'm also very excited to hear what you have going on, Brieane. So why don't you introduce
All
yourself?
right. Well, I'm Brieane Shanahan, and I just released my first novel, Restoring the Elemental Stone, on Kickstarter as a pre-order. And so I'm super excited about that, and a lot of work has gone into it. So this is kind of like dream come true moment for me. But aside from that, I'm also a kindergarten teacher. So these are my two kind of passions in life, and they're kind of in the same realm but different. So
Me too. Sorry to hear that thumping. My dog has decided to awaken from under the desk and be a tiny terror. I'm going to let him out of the office now.
that's
Goodbye, Jake.
all
Go.
right. You
Goodbye,
might
Jake.
hear my beagles at some point, so I'll just apologize ahead of time.
See, my dog is a beagle
Oh,
mix.
okay. Yeah. Beagles are the best.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about our books. So, what inspired you to write Restoring the Elemental Stone? What inspired you to write it, and kind of why did you want to write it?
Yeah, so I've basically been creating stories since I was a kid, and I would have my little brother. We lived kind of out in the middle of nowhere where there was either desert or like forest type scenery. So I would pretend that I saw a fairy or some other kind of creature, and I'd kind of go running after it. And I'd make up these elaborate kind of stories, and I'd kind of drag my little brother along with me for the adventure. And I think that kind of just spiraled into my love of writing and kind of creating worlds. So, what was it? 5 years, 6 years ago now, we moved to Colorado. And while we lived there, we were kind of going on all these really cool adventures to new places, hiking. We went to Cave of the Winds, ice castles. And so we were just going to all these really cool places. And at the same time, I was like, I think I want to write a book. And so I took a class, and I had this one sentence kind of that popped into my head. And I So it was just that, um, basically, couple sentences that popped in my head. And from there, I just expanded and created the rest. So I just had to kind of follow through with it.
That's awesome. I was sharing earlier when we were having technical difficulties that the Lightkeeper for me began as a two-sentence writing prompt that I had found on Pinterest. And I had written it as a short story that I just couldn't get off my mind. And I was doing courses with the Institute of Children's Literature. And so for my final project, I could either write a whole short story that they would proof and get ready for publication, or I could submit to them instead the first 3 chapters of a novel. And since novels were more the direction I wanted to go, I chose to develop that short story into 3 chapters. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. So that's it's a
Yes.
I think that's a really fun thing about us writers, that we take such a small thing and then it just blossoms like crazy.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened. Is I ended up adding all these cool places I went to in Colorado and kind of transform them into the places that I wanted my characters to experience and go to. So it spirals for sure.
So do you have a favorite moment of the book that you're able to share without spoiling it, or can you at least tell us why it's your favorite moment?
That's so hard because a lot of my favorite moments are like pivotal moments
Mm-hmm.
that I feel like would give too much away. But I will say that one of my favorite things about my novel is the character journals that are included. So throughout each chapter, Marigold has written in her journal, and the reader is able to read those journal entries and kind of get a peek into what she's thinking and feeling from like her direct opinion. And so that's something that's super special to me. And I can read one of those if you'd like.
Yeah, if you want to share a short entry, that would be awesome.
Yeah.
And then I think Catherine had a question for you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I will start then with just basically chapter 1. It starts out with her first journal entry. So chapter 1, Cedar Grove Orphanage, day number 2109 at Cedar Grove Orphanage. Today will be like every other day, a long list of chores, horrible stale food, and trying my best to stay on Miss Belfer's good side, if she even has one, which is getting harder and harder to do. I'm still no closer to finding out what happened to my parents when they disappeared 6 years ago, but I'm not giving up hope. I miss them so much and think about them every day. I just wish I knew where they were. Until then, I guess I will continue to call the Cedar Grove Orphanage my home, a dark and dreary home. So that's basically the first journal entry, and it kind of gives us a glimpse into what her life is looking like at the orphanage.
Yeah.
And then there's one other snippet that I'm going to read just because I feel like it gives us a better idea of what she's having to deal with. So I had it bookmarked here. Okay, so all right, let's see. Marigold stared down at the floor, remembering the mistake she had made years ago, shortly after arriving at Cedar Grove. That was the first and the last time she ever looked directly into Miss Belfer's eyes, and she would never make that mistake again. Marigold had just lost her parents and was dropped into a new home surrounded by new faces. How was she supposed to know that she wasn't allowed to look at Miss Belfer or ask questions? That fateful day, Marigold had done both. She looked her in the eye and asked, Miss Belfer, do we have to do all of these chores today? As she held up her list. Each of the other children gasped in shock, but kept their heads down. A chill shivered up her spine at the memory of her first time in the dusty old basement. Miss Belfer continued moving down the line, handing each of the 7 children who called Cedar Grove home their list. Yes, whispered one of the kids, before quickly covering her mouth. Miss Belfer handed Kai his list, then moved on to Marigold, handing her list with a snicker. Marigold looked over her list, shine Miss Belfer's shoes, sweep the front entryway, gather firewood and kindling, empty out the rat traps, Not again, mumbled Marigold under her breath. Miss Belfer spun around and got right in Marigold's face. Out of the corner of her eye, Marigold saw the other children step back, as if their proximity to her would attract Miss Belfer's wrath as well. What did you say, child? She spat out. Marigold felt each breath hit her face, but she kept her eyes glued to the floor. Nothing, Miss Belfer. I didn't say anything. She somehow managed to keep her voice steady, even though her heart was racing. No one made a sound as they waited to hear how Miss Belfer would respond. And Marigold felt her hands start to sweat. Just as I thought. Get a move on, children. We don't have all day. Miss Belfer left the room as quickly as she had come in.
Awesome.
All right, so
Very
my dramatic reading.
It's fun.
So yeah, she is not having a good time at Cedar Grove, but she does have Kai, who's her best friend. So
That's awesome. I think one of the questions we had earlier was, what is your favorite part about writing for middle grade?
oh man, I feel like there's so many topics that you can write about in middle grade, and ages 8 to 12 is such a great age range where they're learning how to be themselves and how to like express themselves to others and just deal with life in general. And so I think being able to allow the characters that are the same age, allow them to go on adventures and experience things and show them it's okay, is probably my favorite part, because I'm kind of leading the way for them and letting them know, hey, like it's okay to take a chance. It's okay to make mistakes. It's just what you do with your mistake that makes the difference.
Yeah, a big part for me about the Lightkeeper is learning to take responsibility for your actions. Because my main character, Isaac, he is very quick to passive blame and say, it's not my issue. If it's not affecting me, why should I care? But by the end of it, not only does he learn that, you should resolve problems, especially if you're the one who creates them, but he turns from this very selfish person to someone willing to make a sacrifice. And that's why, for me, my favorite moment is literally just the last line of the book where he just says, my name is Isaac Henry Hale, and I am a Lightkeeper, because he's finally stepped into this role that he didn't necessarily want, but now he knows that this is bigger than me, and is excited about the prospect of it. And I think it's, fun for kids to learn that they can step into things that they might not necessarily have chosen for themselves originally, be it, like a sports or things like that.
Yeah, exactly. And just pushing past fears. I feel like mine has a lot of, Marigold's afraid of just almost everything, and understanding what your fears are, but also pushing past them to do like what needs to be done, and what basically what you want to do in life.
Is that what inspired the affirmation tokens that you have on your Kickstarter campaign?
Yes. I'm so excited about my affirmation tokens. I spent a lot of time kind of just designing them and deciding how I wanted them to be. But yeah, Marigold spends a lot of time self-talking throughout the novel, and not all of it is great, right? Like, I don't know if I can do this. But then she ends up with a mantra that's, I'm brave, I'm strong, and it has to do with the letter that her parents left her. So you guys will learn a little bit more about that when you read it. But the affirmation tokens are a big part of it. I think even if you keep them for yourself, or you want to give them to someone who you think could use a little bit of support, was my main reason for including them. So I have, I am brave, I believe in myself, I will not give up, I am strong, and I can do anything I set my mind to. So these were just, I really wanted to include them as kind of a support.
So we had a question of, do we see the character, any of your characters becoming friends if they met? So I think they mean your and my characters, and I think we had this discussion off camera that our characters have a lot of similarities. So I would say that they probably would be fast friends. Isaac is very sociable, so he's not afraid to talk up to anybody, and he's just down for a good time. He loves to explore and get his hands dirty, and all that kind of good stuff.
Yeah, that sounds kind of like Kai. He's always up for an adventure and he's a little bit mischievous. So I could definitely see them getting along. And you know, Marigold depends on when they meet her, but if it's at the end of the book, you know, she might be more willing to meet new people right away. But this kind of gives me an idea. Crossover, like Portal. No.
They
So
do
yeah.
have fairies.
Right? I mean,
So talking about the affirmations of the journal page, you said Marigold writes. What is it about your characters that you think readers are going to connect with the most?
yeah, I think during in that age range, that kids are afraid of, you know, many different things from spiders to storms to bullies. You know, there's just a lot expectations. So they've got a lot of fears. And I think my character Marigold will resonate with a lot of kids, and they'll be able to see her, you know, being able to accomplish what she
Yeah.
has in the book and kind of go from there. And Kai, you know, he's just that best friend that is always encouraging. And even if kids don't have a Kai in their life, you know, having this Kai in their life kind of helps, you know, because we connect. Even when we watch TV, you know, we connect with the characters and kind of are
Oh, yeah,
inspired by them.
absolutely.
Yeah. So what about you?
So as I've said, I feel like Isaac is a very average 12-year-old in the way that he's very self-serving, kind of all about himself. Yara, on the other hand, she's kind of raised herself in the way because her mother is in a critical health condition, is in a magically induced coma. And so Yara is really missing a present parent, and she's kind of closed herself off, thinking that, you know, it's all about her. I think there are other kids that feel like they can only depend on themselves and they're scared to let other people in. And so for her to start working with Isaac, who is very aggressive and, you know, very opposite of her, they butt heads a lot. And I think, you know, kids do that too. They go, that person's so opposite from me, I couldn't possibly have anything to relate with them about. But they find that there are things that they agree on. And I think that that's important to show that you can open yourself up to others and you can learn to accept people that are different than you. So
Yeah.
even though Isaac thought of Yara as the weird girl, they become friends by the end because he sees that, you know, a lot of these things he thought were weird were actually strengths for her, and it's okay to be different.
I think that is such a crucial element to have in just for any kid's book, really. Like, so important. It's one thing I also stress in my classroom a lot. So that's awesome.
So one of the questions in the chat is, who is a favorite character of yours that is not a main character?
That's such a great question. Do you want to take it away first?
So I do really love my side characters. My fairies are super fun. I really Ariella is one of my favorite fairies. She is a nature fairy, a forest nymph, and she has an obsession with roses. And so when she comes in, she's all whimsical and dancing, and the trees respond to her touch. Like they try to like lean in through the window just to be closer to her. She can sing roses to life from a bud, and she's just very, very sweet when she's trying to have Isaac release her so that she can be on her own again. And then at the end of the book, you can kind of see the thorns of the rose, so to speak. You see why she was dangerous and had been captured in the first place. And so for me, it's a lot of fun to have that you know, 1-2.
Absolutely. I love that. You know, I have all of my creatures that I love so much. Some of them are creatures that people are familiar with. So I have dryads, cedar sprout, and willow blossom. And I also have the Grove of Guardians, which are also dryads. They're like the elders. So I have them. And then I've got creatures that I've made up, which I have a Lumi, and that's one of the main characters in my book. And then I also have swamp pixies. So my creatures are probably one of my favorite things. I just love creatures so much. But as far as a character that's like a person, I would have to say Old Lady Rava. She is the town's crazy lady. And when I picture her, I just see this old lady with her arms outstretched, and she's like, "Oh, my dears, like, come give this old lady a hug," and she's really warm and welcoming to Marigold and Kai, and she's like a safe haven for them. So, and she's the one who's feeding them little stories about how it used to be when there was magic, which nobody really believes in. So she was kind of like my other favorite character that's outside of my main characters.
So kind of shifting away from our books a little bit, just into our author life. You said you're a kindergarten teacher. So as being an author also, people have been talking about their Delulu goals. I've seen like on threads and stuff. So do you have like a big author goal or something that happened to either about you specifically or your book that you'd be like, yes, this is it?
So funny enough, you see all these movies nowadays that are really originating from novels, and so like Pipe Dream would be that they like Netflix or Hulu or someone turns my book into a movie or series.
See, we are twin souls. That has been my lifelong goal since I was in high school. If I want to write something and see it adapted,
yeah,
that's all I ever wanted.
Isn't that's like the most legit pipe dream that I wish could happen. But a smaller, more manageable dream that I have is to basically put my book into a writing contest. So I do plan on entering it in November into just a writing book competition. So smaller goal first.
Yeah. So question, if it was a movie, did you want it to be live action or are you leaning more towards an animated one?
Ooh.
So we have fairies, so animation is probably easier, but what's more fun?
Yeah, right. I think it could go either way depending on like the style of animation. So that's tricky.
Yeah,
both.
When I see it in my head, I think I always see it being more animated, but that's because I was a TV kid. I watched shows constantly, and so Pokemon was really huge for me. And I've always said that that my book is a little bit of like Percy Jackson meets Pokemon, and things like Boy Meets World. But I've always pictured them kind of like not quite anime, but not quite American art either. Our art is weird.
Yeah.
I've always pictured them more cartoons. People are like, oh, what actors would play your characters? I'm like, I don't know. So
I don't even know pretty much any of the young actors these days, so it makes
it's hard to search child actors and not look like a weirdo on the internet.
Right? Who's this creep? Oh man.
So what excites you most about being an author?
I think taking all the fun things that are happening in my brain and like all of these adventures and stories and putting them into something tangible that others can read and enjoy is I think what excites me most, but also scares me the most, to be honest. Just that fear of, are they gonna like it, but then again, channeling my inner Marigold and trying to push past the fear and just do it, so
yeah. Not well, my words weren't just what was my word last year? I had my guiding word of the year this year is press on, and now I can't remember what my word was last year, and it's crazy, but it boiled down to just do it. Oh, it was I can. That was my mantra last year, was I can, because I had never planned on being a self-published author, but my publisher had to abruptly close, and so all of a sudden my book was meant to be releasing 6 months from now, but my publisher was gone, and I didn't want to start over. And so after I threw myself a pity party for 24 hours, I started planning. And so every time that I felt like it was too much and that I couldn't possibly, I just remembered that I have all the skills. I do know what to do. It's just a matter of doing it. And so I kept it as a sticky note right above my laptop. So anytime I looked past my screen, it was just right there. I can.
Yeah.
And then this year it's press on. It's, we did it. so we can continue to do it, keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to go, oh, we achieved the goal, we're done. But, to keep moving on. So that's what I'm trying to tell myself this year is keep going.
I love
so
that. Yeah, press on. And then I might borrow that.
So my book, The Lightkeeper, so I have the third book comes out next week. I have plans for it to be 6 books in all, and I'm also writing these little prequel fairy tale retellings, but in the style of The Lightkeeper, as these are true stories, and here's the Lightkeepers that are telling you how Sleeping Beauty really went down. Do you have plans for yours to be a series?
I do have plans. I don't have exactly what's going to happen in the following books, but I do know that I'll at least try 3 to start is my goal. Like, let's make it 3 books, and then depending on where we're at, maybe more. And right now I'm kind of in the generating ideas phase for book 2. So I do have some different things. I want to dive deeper into the world a little bit more in book 2. So that's kind of where I'm at. But I also plan on, once I get my newsletter up and running, adding some additional short stories just for my newsletter that revolve around kind of the world of Sansadorn, but not with my main characters. So there'll be like stories from side characters and creatures instead.
Very fun. Yeah, fairy tale retellings are just so popular, and so I thought that it would be fun if I could prove that they were historically accurate. And so the first book that I'm releasing is a Sleeping Beauty retelling, and it kind of sets up that the fairy prince who is missing in the beginning of my series, he's the one that found the Lightkeepers, and so it kind of tells how he got the idea to create the Lightkeepers as he was rescuing Sleeping Beauty, who is a human princess that he fell in love with. He kind of lived out her human years until she died, and then he went back to the fairy realm and developed what would become the Lightkeepers.
Okay.
And then I have the true tales of the Lightkeepers, the first Lightkeepers, and so that's just their origination story. And I have like the tales of like Baba Yaga and the Krampus in there, and how the Lightkeepers took them down. And it's been really fun to think about these traditional stories, but think about if they really happened, how it might have played out.
Yeah, that is so fun. And there's so many different spins on all of those original fairy tales, from the good to the grim, so it's kind of, it'll be interesting to see how you spin those and incorporate them.
Yeah, so question from the chat is, what's your favorite part about doing your Kickstarter, and are any of your goals that you have your favorite?
Ooh, so fun. So I just love Kickstarter. This is my very first one that I've ever done. And the reason I decided to do it in the first place was because you not only get the book, right? That's like the given, but it's all the fun stuff that goes with it. And I think I just had so much fun creating all of my extra stuff to go with it, that like that was just my favorite part. And then I guess my favorite thing that I designed would probably be probably my affirmation cards or my affirmation tokens, but I do also like my character cards, and I have an enamel pin, so that one's kind of far off as a stretch goal, but it did turn out really, really cute. So I'm hoping we can get through some more stretch goals. We're cutting it close. We're down to like 3 days left. But we're already $57 away from the 4x6 art print. So like, I'm like, come on, we're so close. Everybody wins. But that's what I love about it, is in Kickstarter, the more you do, everybody like just gets more stuff. And how fun is that?
Yeah, that's definitely a lot of fun. I did character cards for my first Kickstarter, and I had a lot of fun designing those.
Yes,
and so
I love yours.
with each book, I've been developing 3 new character cards that we people could get, maybe traded like Pokemon cards in the future when I can afford to get everybody developed into a card. But for right now, I just picked the top 3. I think the favorite thing that I had designed for this one, it's not on my stretch goals, it's an add-on, and that is it's a coin. The fairy currency in the Lightkeeper is terrets. And so I designed what the coin would look like, and then I found one of the companies that does like enamel pins, but they do coins as well. And so it's a 1.5-inch diameter coin, and then they put the sun rays and kind of the crown on there with some fairy script on framing the top of it, and then it just has my Lightkeeper logo on the flip side of it. But I'm like, oh, but how cool is that? Like, oh, this is fairy currency, and then it, comes in a cute little case. I'm like, I just, I love little things like that you can just have, you can put in your pocket. And I also had my Lightkeeper logo finally designed, so I was really tempted to add enamel pins as a stretch goal, but my campaign's a little stagnant right now, so I don't think we're going to earn very many of my stretch goals, but I'm just hoping that we get enough to get the colored interior art.
Absolutely. Yeah, I saw your coin and I was like, oh my gosh, that's so cool. Like, I love all your add-ons. I was afraid to do a bigger kind of box type situation this time, it being my first time round. But
yeah.
I think for the next one, I definitely plan to go a little bit bigger and, crazier with the goods. But yeah, your coin's awesome.
Yeah, I went a little overboard designing my add-ons for last year. So a lot of my add-ons this year, what I had for my last campaign that I still have too many of. But, it's for me, it's having things that are in the book be tangible is just so cool to me. So like I have fairy glass is one of my add-ons, and I was obsessed with finding a way to make it glow. And so this year it finally occurred to me that the ball doesn't have to glow if the base can glow. And so I found these LED platforms that the ball can sit on as the display, and then now it glows gold, like it glows in Isaac's hand, and that was exciting to me.
Absolutely. That was super fun when I saw it too. And these are all the things that I feel like as a kid, I would have like just ate it all up. Like, this is the best. So I feel like I'm partially making stuff for my inner child because I know that I would have loved it as a kid. I would have wanted like a whole collection of your coins. Like, I would probably need a little satchel full of them.
Yeah. Conversely, I have King's coin in there as well because the High King, he's the overall series bad guy, and so when he took over, he stomped out the terrors, and he made his King's coin, which is kind of like a rusty black coin with just a crown on it. So I'm like, if I sold enough of those, I could have the other coin too.
Yeah. You still have like 11 days, right? You got some time.
Yeah, I just launched last week. So having trouble getting outside of my zone, but it has funded, so people are going to get their books.
Yep. And that's the first step. I feel like, at least for me, it was the first step. So, yeah, it's exciting.
Well, that was most of the questions that I had planned for you. Are there any other questions in the chat that anybody would like to ask us? So, because otherwise, I can read one of my favorite snippets from book 1. I was thinking about reading a snippet from book 3, but it's so hard to describe book 3 without spoiling things in the first 2 books. I will say that I'm very excited about book 3 though, because it's a combination of things that I super love. I grew up watching my dad play video games, and so to tie into like this video game aspect of when something bad happens, you reset or respawn. Okay. And sometimes when you respawn, it's either not in the same place or the things around you have changed. And so in the Wish world, that's what Yara realizes, is that Isaac respawns, but he's not the same. And so she has to learn how to adapt to that, which is very infuriating to her. Because, unlike when you do like a Groundhog Day scenario, you're like, oh, well, I'll just learn from what happened last time and I'll just add on. She doesn't have that ability to just add on.
Yes. Oh, that is so good. Sorry. I'm just like so excited to read your books.
Thank you. All right. So from the chat, we have, what's your favorite thing about your antagonist or conflicts of your story?
For me, I think there's more to Miss Belfer than we originally know, and we get little clues throughout, and then I feel like there are some surprises that happen. So just basically knowing she's super bad from the start, but also getting to know that there might be some other things going on that you learn about along the way.
Yeah, Christo is my villain in book one. He's the first fairy that Isaac releases, and he's the one that's trying to tear open the veil between the human and fairy worlds. But we learn later on that he wasn't the one necessarily calling the shots, and so that's they learn about the High King, and so honestly, my favorite thing about Christo is that though he is the villain, he's very polite and very well mannered. He cares about his appearance, so he gets dirty. He's like, it's just like that kind of like infuriating where someone's like taunting you like, oh come on now, you can do better than that. I gave you every opportunity. You're just like, oh.
Oh my gosh, that's too funny. And that's kind of like Miss Belfer as well, is that the whole town thinks that she's this amazing person. She does all this volunteer work, and she's just this stand-up person according to the community. But only the kids in the orphanage know the truth about her. So looks can be deceiving.
Yeah, for sure. And I do like pulling the little twists throughout the series. I had to say that the end of book two, my developmental editor is like, you really want to end it that way? I was like, yeah, I do. So people are gonna love this, because I wrote that moment. I hard typed on the keyboard. I'm like, yeah, that's it. Nobody could pay me to change this. It ends this way.
Right.
Because it's just such a moment, and I knew that people, if they were invested in the series, they'd like, what? My stories resolve themselves with each book, so it's like if you haven't read book one, you just jump in with book two. There's not really a story that you're missing out on. There's an overarching theme, yes, but you can always figure it out along the way.
Yeah.
But yeah, the end of that book has made me so excited. The ending of book three is a little softer, but definitely leaves you with a lot of questions.
Okay. Yes, I'm excited. I love twists too. And I'm excited because I try to put some in mine, and I'm excited for them as well.
Yeah, learning how to do a good twist was important to me. Like one of those things that I read a lot about, people like, make sure that it's a plot twist and then you're not just pulling the rug out from under people. Like you can't just slap them with something that you didn't even build up to. I'm like, okay, well, let's make sure that I sprinkled some seeds in there that this was a possibility.
Exactly. And that's the hard part, is doing the sprinkling and making sure it fits.
Yes. I'm my writing style is pantser. I definitely just go in with some ideas and feelings about the book, and I just go. And then so I have to actually like go back in and plug those things in to make them make sense later on.
Yeah, I'm kind of a combo. I start out like that, like here's all my ideas, but then I kind of do an outline, like a short, simple outline, and then I go back in, and then I go again. Yeah, I'm kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I did a master class that was from R.L. Stein, and he was sharing that the way that he does it is that he writes an outline, and then he writes it again with more detail, and then writes it again with more detail, and just keeps getting, it's the same outlines, it's longer and longer. I'm like, well, maybe that's what I do. Maybe my first draft is just a really long outline.
Right. And then I have a problem because I edit while I write, and I can't help it. So I'm still in that, probably newbie author phase where I can't just write without that editing. So I'm always like, oh, no. I need to phrase it like this. So I need to kind of work on that. But yeah.
Yeah, that is probably the thing that kept me out of publishing for the longest time, was that inner perfectionist. And so I would write a book to like 70, 80% of we can do better. Let's start over. And so I have my book, my baby, that I'm like, oh, this is my dream series to publish, and it's on the back burner because I don't think I can ever live up to what I think I wanted to create in my head. So I'm not even going to try to touch it until the Lightkeeper is over, and then maybe by then I'll be the writer that I always thought I could be.
Yeah.
But
Press on.
high school me was like, nah.
Yes, you'll just have to remember your phrase and just keep pressing on.
Yeah. And so I definitely, I just go in with it now. One of my favorite resources that I got, do you ever participate in National Novel Writing Month in November?
I haven't yet.
Okay. So that's what actually got me to writing my first book to completion, was trying to hit that goal of writing a 50,000 word novel over the 30 days of November. Yeah. Because I was the time constraint had to, is you only got the 30 days. But one of the resources that they have is they always give you like a 30-day subscription to the website, forthewords.com, like the number 4 the words. And it's like a video game, but writing is your weapons. And so like you're going around like this region and you come across monsters, like, oh, this monster requires 250 words to defeat, so you have to type 250 words to defeat it. Or this monster requires a 10-minute writing sprint to defeat, and if you don't achieve it, your character gets hurt and stuff. And so I find that when I'm doing my writing sessions, especially if I'm like hitting writer's block and I'm stuck, I go on there and it changes the mindset, like, oh, well, we have to. And so I really enjoy using that when I am stuck or need that extra little push to go through.
Yeah, that sounds really motivating. I'd probably like it as well. I've been contemplating doing the nano, is it NaNoWriMo? Is that what they call it?
Yeah, I always pronounce it NaNoWriMo, but that's not correct. Oh, okay. It's because it stands for National Novel Writing Month. Like, right. Remo. Well, I'm from the South. I can say what I want.
Yeah. So last November, I was not only teaching kindergarten, but I was also teaching adults that wanted to become teachers. So I was like just so swamped, and I felt a little bit guilty, like I really wanted to do it, but I just couldn't. So I'm like, maybe this November I might try to use it for book 2 and see. But that kind of game part of it sounds like it'd be so motivating for me. So for the words, I love that.
I wrote book 2 of The Lightkeeper as one of my nanos, and then these little prequel stories, I did a whole series of those as nano one time as well, and the first draft for book 3. So I like to work on Lightkeeper stuff as part of my nano because it's new, but it's also not. This year, though, I have to work on a story because apparently I agreed to be part of a book set about novels that I forgot that I signed up for like 2 years ago, and it's due in January. So I'll be working on that in November.
Yep. Oh, man. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you, Catherine.
All your questions have been so great.
Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Well, do you have any closing thoughts that you'd like to leave with our viewers about your campaign or your book?
I'm just going to drop the link here in the chat. Oops, I don't know if I can right now. But I will say that if you are interested in getting any of our books, but you're like, I just really can't afford to go and do the paperback or the hardbacks right now, I would suggest just going for the ebook. It's really your chance to, pay $5 or yours is, I think, 15 for all 3 of your ebooks, right?
Mm-hmm. So and it still comes with all the bonus stuff and all the digital rewards, all the digital stretch goals.
It's such a score, I feel like, to get. You'll still get to read the books. You won't have it tangible, but you still get to support us, and you're getting a chance to read and get all those digital goodies. So for anybody on the fence, and you just go for the ebook if you still want to be part of it, is my little plug and suggestion. And what I do as a backer too, I want to be able to support people, but I can't always afford the box that I want with all the goodies. So I just end up sometimes doing the ebook package. So let me grab that link real quick.
And then then also remember that Christmas is coming up, so any of these things make great gifts as well. Even if you do get the ebooks, my books come from Book Funnel, so you could just provide that link to your loved ones, and they would be able to receive it instead of you. I That's why my campaign is launching now, is to make sure that I have enough time to get the books printed and mailed out in time for Christmas.
Be available on Amazon and where other books are sold, by the gift of reading for Christmas.
Yes. Oh, and one last question. So I do have audio for my books 1 and 2. Audio is going to production for book 3. One narrator in August, the other narrator is going to jump on it in October. So hopefully that'll be ready by Christmas as well. But do you see audiobooks in your future?
Yes, the audiobook is like my last stretch goal, and I was really, really hoping to be able to get to that, but I think I might just have to save up and do it on my own. Hopefully by maybe early next year, I'll be able to do the audiobook. I've recently got into audiobooks myself. I've really, most of my life, been a kind of hands-on reader, and recently been getting into audiobooks. So I'd really like to have a chance to turn Restoring the Elemental Stone into audio.
Yeah,
with all the voices.
my narrator does amazing voices, and I found him through ACX. So, but I'm happy to talk to you about my experience with audiobooks offline. But I am so glad that we were able to get this set up, that you were able to join me tonight. Thank you for letting us have this chat together. It's been so much fun.
Yes.
So guys, make sure that you're following Brieane, make sure you're following me. If you want to support our Kickstarter campaigns, we'd be grateful, but even just sharing our campaigns with people who you know who like to read would mean the world.
Yes.
So thank you everyone for joining us, and I hope everybody has a fantastic night.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.